Spanish recently overtook English as the second most widely spoken language on Earth, at anywhere between 440 to 500 million native speakers. This is surprising considering the country the language developed in fosters only 46 million. This is actually less than the number of Spanish speakers in the United States alone by over 6.5 million. Similar to English, French, Portuguese, and others, colonialism was responsible for the spread of Spanish to the Western Hemisphere, Africa, and multiple colonies in the East Asian Indies. Outside of one small country in Africa, Spanish has died out in that continent, and it similarly died in Eastern Asia. Then again, some Spanish can be heard in northern Morocco due to the proximity, Spain and Morocco only being separated by the Strait of Gibraltar. The countries of Eastern Asia that no longer speak the language speak Bahasa Indonesia, Bahasa Melayu, or Portuguese as lingua francas instead. If any still speak Spanish in these islands, it is typically the elderly populations or the 0.5% that learn enough in school to be considered proficient. Side note, there are Spanish-based Creole languages, such as the Chabacano or Chabacano language spoken in the Philippines and the dying Palenquero language of Colombia. These languages are either being replaced by the pure standard form of Spanish or one of those two lingua francas mentioned before. Such areas or colonies where proper education of languages lacks, the emerging form being spoken quite differently than those who were formerly trained in the language. Naming all the countries that have a sizable Spanish-speaking population would take forever. However,
Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Cuba, the Dominican Republic, Ecuador, El Salvador, Equatorial Guinea, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, Nicaragua, Panama, Paraguay, Peru, Puerto Rico, which is not a country but still a region that speaks Spanish, Spain, Uruguay, Venezuela, and America, which is a predominantly English-speaking country, however has a sizable Spanish-speaking population.
Castilian is a name for the standard variety of Spanish spoken worldwide. However, other less widely spoken languages native to Spain include Galician, Aragonese, and the more recently famous Catalan. Also a few others with diminishing speaker populations. These languages belong to the Iberian branch of the Romance language family, except for Catalan, which may have more similarities to the Occitan language of southern France. The level of mutual intelligibility within these languages is very high, even by Romance language standards. The odd man out in this scenario being Basque, a famous language isolate that has no connection to any current Indo-European language. Speakers of Castilian Spanish can't agree on what to call it, some countries exclusively naming the language as either Castilian or Spanish. The name Castilian derives from the region of Castile where the standard language was based upon. Whatever the name, Castilian Spanish derived from Latin just as all other Romance languages. However, many other languages and groups have greatly impacted the vocabulary of the language. Many Arabic loanwords entered Spanish due to 8 centuries of Moorish rule, mainly from Tunisia and Morocco. This near millennia of North African rule of much of the Iberian Peninsula led to 8% of Castilian Spanish vocabulary being Arabic in origin. A similar process occurred with the Sicilian language, yet that's not the focus of this video. These words are closer to the Arabic found in the northwestern African dialects rather than the standard Quran form. Such words of Arabic origin are aceite from Arabic zayt, ojala from Arabic mashallah, albaqa from Arabic albaq, alcohol from Arabic kol. Notice the words that begin with al. This usually signifies a word deriving from Arabic roots rather than the vulgar Latin that became the majority of the language. After the retaking of the Iberian Peninsula by what would become a unified Spain, around the same time, Christopher Columbus, or Cristobal Colon in Spanish, and Cristoforo Colombo in Italian, was sent to explore and found what would become Latin America. That Spanish would be the language spoken in the New World. There are multiple other influences, such as Basque, that same language isolate spoken mainly in the northeast of Spain that I mentioned earlier. This proximity created a mutual influence, such as pronunciation and mutual words being exchanged between both languages, just not as many as Arabic. Such words include izquierda, from Basque esquer, bacalao, from Basque bacalaoa, ascona, meaning dart, from Basque ascon, and mochila, from Basque mochil. English has also been affected by this language. Words such as buckaroo, coming from the Spanish word meaning cowboy, vaquero, bodega, which has been corrupted to mean quarter store, el lagarto, now meaning alligator, and the word potato, which comes from patata, which comes in turn from the Taino word batata, which now just means sweet potato in Spanish. Ladino, or Judeo-Spanish, Judesmo, is a form of Spanish that drifted from the standard language spoken in Spain when the crown kicked all Jews out of Spain, creating, or forcing rather, a diaspora of Spanish speakers that now speak a language that is, from my understanding, only as different as Yiddish is to German. The spelling is not fixed, and to my ears is a dialect rather than a separate language, with some loanwords. Grammatically, Spanish is similar to other Romance languages, with an SVO sentence structure. This means the subject is usually the first in the sentence, followed by the verb conjugated to agree with the subject, and then the object being acted upon. Side note, conjugations are nothing scary, they just mention who's doing what in the sentence. As a result, the actual subject of the sentence is frequently left out when conjugated to refer to the first person singular, first person plural, second person singular, and second person plural. This is even easier than it looks, those terms meaning I, we, you, and you all. Spanish is written with a Latin script. It is an extra letter called the ñ. This makes a nasal sound followed by what we in English would call a Y. Español and jalapeño using this letter, but never habanero. Voy a comer este libro, which means I go to eat this book. As you can see, the sentence structure is near identical to English, except the missing first-person singular pronoun in the Spanish example, which would be yo. ¿Quieres llevarme al banco? Meaning, you want to bring me to the bank. The word al is a contraction of the words a and el, that mean to and the, respectively. Tomaste vino rojo? You drink, past tense, wine, bread? In Spanish, the adjective comes after the object of the sentence. Similar to French, the cognate count between English and Spanish is quite high, many words being only slightly different from English. There are the false friends though, such as actualmente, which actually means current as opposed to actually. Billón, meaning trillion rather than billion. Largo, meaning long as opposed to large. And asistir, meaning to attend rather than to assist. Sopa means soup, not soap. Remember, different areas speak differently, the major pronunciation outliers being in the north of Spain, where the language originated from, and some parts of Argentina. Northern Spaniards produce C and Z sounds with the American digraph TH sounds, like in thorough, but not the. ¿Por qué conoces estas zanahorias? As opposed to, ¿por qué conoces estas zanahorias?
Cecilia y César están en Barcelona cenando ceviche con cerveza.
Argentinian Spanish has a noticeable sh sound in the place of double L and Y sounds. Llama rather than llama, Castellano rather than castellano. Here's a clip from a native Argentinian.
Hola, soy Natalia de Buenos Aires, Argentina. Viví un año en Nueva York y 5 años en París.
Che, y se usa para referirnos a alguien sin tener que llamarlo por su nombre.
Many in the Caribbean would actually pronounce R sounds closer to an L sound, such as places like Puerto Rico saying Puerto Rico instead of Puerto Rico. Vosotros is a word used exclusively in Spain, meaning you all, informally. Everywhere else, the word ustedes is used, which is actually the formal version, and is conjugated differently. Keep in mind, even within one country, many accents can be heard. Just as there is no one American or British accent, someone from the north of Argentina may or may not speak differently than a southern companion. Indigenous native languages also affect these regional dialects, such as Guarani in Uruguay, or Quechua on the western coast. These usually impact common nouns, but nearly all understand the standard form. El silbo gomero, literally translating to the Gomeran whistle, is a language spoken on the Canary Islands of Spain that has 2 vowels and 4 consonants. It is relevant to this video due to El Silbo's sounds correlating directly to Spanish, making it less of a language and more of a code to talk across mountainous landscapes.
Okay, yeah, that was my first video on linguistics. If you have anything to say about it, don't hesitate to say it in the comments below. Please civic discussion on law. If you have any interesting tidbits on your own dialect/accent, even if not a native speaker, that would be interesting too. Thanks. Any suggestions, if you suggest any, that is, will be considered.